Hello everyone, welcome to another video on the channel and welcome to another GT Sport Daily Race strategy guide. It's week 38 and this week we are heading to Circuit de la Sarthe with no chicane. It's Group 1 cars but with the no chicane variant of La Sarthe. That means we're going to be in the Group C cars if you want to be competitive. In terms of race details, we have 6 laps to get round, tyres at times 9, which is very high given we have the soft and the medium tyres available. Fuel only at times 2, both the soft and the medium tyres should be mandatory. BOP is on, damage is off, it's a rolling start and slipstream is real. So as I said just a little bit earlier, when it's Circuit de la Sarthe with no chicane, that means that the 2 chicanes are missed out on the Milzan straight. You want to be in the fastest cars in a straight line, and that is the Group C monsters from the late 80s and early 90s, of which there is 5. Now they're all very fast in a straight line, but one car does stand out in particular, and that is the Nissan R92 CP, which will reach 231 miles an hour down the straight, which is 4 miles an hour quicker than its nearest rival, the Mazda 787B. Interestingly, the Nissan, even in the slipstream, only top out at 232, so gains very little in the slipstream, whereas all the other Group C cars can get very close to the Nissan's top speed of 231, 232 whilst in the slipstream. So they are usable, the other cars, but in clean air, the Nissan R92 CP has a very definite advantage over its Group C compatriots. So with all that in mind, of course our test car is going to be the Nissan R92 CP. So joining on board here, I must say straight off the bat, beautiful cockpit view in these Group C cars. I suggest that anyone who's playing these cars on a wheel or even on the pad should be playing this in cockpit view. Honestly, give it a go. I can assure you I think it will up your enjoyment tenfold. Anyway, let's move on to some strategy, because I think that's what you're here for more than anything else. So the first strategy we are going to test is the soft medium strategy. Usually in these strategy guides I do go for the medium soft strategy first, but let's just get the soft medium strategy out the way, because if you are starting in the top 3 positions, then the likelihood is you will start on the soft tyres. Now the tyre wear is at times 9, it's the soft tyres, it's a 3-minute lap, albeit a lot of it is in a straight line. However, these Group C cars with their power and their torque do tend to put a lot of stress through the tyres as well. You want to have your brake balance at -5, it's the rear tyres that get all the punishment in these cars. Even with the brake balance all the way to the front, the rear tyres will still wear more than the fronts, so it's very important to do that for the race. So with that kind of all said, I wasn't sure how far the tyres would go. I was kind of most sort of thinking towards around about lap 3. I had done a few test runs, not a whole lot, but I could see from even halfway through the first lap, even on the mediums, the tyre wear was starting to kick in. So towards the end of lap 3 was my kind of thinking, let's go into the pits. However, at this point we were on a purple lap, the car felt absolutely fine, so we decided to stay out for one more lap. Unfortunately we did actually make a little bit of a mess of the chicane by not changing down to 3rd and going through the first part in 4th, and therefore never actually got the fastest lap. But again, I think 3 laps, 4 laps on the soft tyres if you're starting on them. It's going to depend on how good you are in tyres, maybe whether you're on the wheel or the pad. Probably if you're on the wheel, it's going to be a lot easier to get to that 4th lap. We are now going to come into the pits at the end of lap number 4, give you a close-up of the tyre just to give you an idea of how they were looking. Do be careful on pit entry, you do have to drive through that chicane. You will see somebody in the wall at some point during the week, I can almost guarantee that. I have to say though, I do like that element of the pit lane in La Sarthe where you do have to drive that chicane. A little bit more skill, a little bit more time to be gained if you're brave on the pit entry there. Hopefully for Gran Turismo 7 they kind of changed the way the pit stops work and there's a little bit more skill involved in making a pit stop in Gran Turismo 7. Eventually though, our car gets into the box. Now La Sarthe has always been known for having a long pit stop, even before the changes to the pit stop times. It's incredibly long actually, I think probably the longest in the game. Maybe Laguna Seca might be slightly longer, but it's around about 30 seconds. I never worked out exactly, I just took that from how much time you lose on the in lap and the out lap compared to normal laps. It's around about 30 seconds, which means there's plenty of scope there to try and get a little bit of clear track if you pit early on the mediums. Fuel is no issue whatsoever. You finish the race with around about half a tank, I believe. So now we're on to these medium tyres. How are they faring up to our soft tyres? Now, it's maybe not the best comparison because I didn't do a whole lot of practice laps before jumping into doing these test runs, so possibly the laps we've done at the beginning there on the soft tyres could be maybe a second, half a second quicker. However, you can see from the sector times in the bottom right hand corner, as we do this flying lap on the medium tyres, we are setting personal best sectors. So looks like the medium tyres, despite the fact it's a very long lap, are not a massive amount slower than the soft tyres. Of course, we have burned off a good bit of fuel here, maybe got a little bit more track time in as well, but given the sort of length of the lap, I think the kind of difference between the soft and medium tyres is really only around about 1, maybe 1.2 seconds. As I said, you spend so much time going a straight line in this track, it doesn't really matter what tyres you are on at the time. But we do set the fastest lap here on the last lap with the medium tyres, just a tenth quicker than what we did on the soft tyres, but it does go to show that they're reasonably competitive. So 19 minutes 11.7, we did have a second added on for a track limits penalty picked up at the first chicane. So 19 minutes 10.7 for that first run there. Let's move on to the medium soft strategy, because I think this is the strategy that most people are going to be employing this week. Tends to be when there's a choice of tyres that most drivers will start on the harder of the two compounds, mediums in this case. So for our test run here, we have went for the most extreme of the medium soft strategies. That's just doing a single lap on the medium tyres and then 5 laps on the soft tyres. Now we knew from the previous run on the soft tyres starting that the tyres weren't too bad after 4 laps, so if a little bit of fuel burned off on that first lap with the mediums, I was fairly confident we could do 5 laps on the soft tyres with reasonable pace and not too much degradation. And in terms of lap time, we don't certainly lose a massive amount, but you can see as we come to the sort of second half here of the last lap, or our 5th lap on the soft tyres, that the rear tyres are looking in pretty bad shape. So maybe not a strategy for everyone. Maybe if you're bad on tyres, using the pad, then you might want to be looking at doing 2 laps on the medium tyres and just 4 laps on the soft tyres. I think for the wheel runners, the 1.5 is definitely possible. If you're just incredibly bad or you want to be really safe, then maybe 3.3, but it's one of these kind of interesting ones, the way the tyres work in this race. Even there seems to be a multitude of strategies. You know, you can do 4 soft, 2 medium, 3 soft, 3 medium, 1 medium, 5 soft. You know, all sorts of different strategies are available. The tyres will hold up for most of them, so again, a lot of these are going to come down to the circumstances of the race. Do you want some clean air to try and avoid the battling with other cars into the corners at the end of the straights, or are you going to need that slipstream to pull you along? It's going to depend on your competitors in a lot of cases and how they choose to race. But over the line we come here, you can see a 3.06.3, only half a second slower than our fastest lap on the soft tyres. So again, just kind of reiterating that the degradation is not too bad. Of course, you've burned off a lot of fuel by that last lap, so the car is definitely a lot lighter, which will be mitigating that difference between the tyre wear. So we're on to that part of the video now where we kind of just reiterate everything that we have learned. I won't spend too much time on it here. We've kind of discussed the strategies quite in depth already in the video, but yeah, it's an interesting race. I think, you know, as I said, there's kind of so many different ways you can kind of split the tyres up. I think for the tyre maestros, the 1 medium 5 soft is definitely on. I think you'll see a lot of people doing that. For the people not quite so comfortable on their tyre wear, starting on the medium tyres, probably looking at 2 laps and then 4 laps on the soft tyres. In terms of starting towards the front, if you're kind of going to try and build up a gap, which may well be difficult given the slipstream, if you know you've got a car behind you less than 0.075 of a second as you come onto the Mulsanne straight, then it's not going to matter about any kind of tyre advantage. They are going to be on your rear end and by you by the end of the straight. So all these things to take into account as this race approaches. But to put it into simple terms, my advice to you drivers out there is if you're good on tyres and you're starting below P5, starting the medium tyres, do 1 lap on the mediums, 5 laps on the softs. If you're starting below P5 and you're not so good on tyres, 2 laps on the mediums, 4 laps on the soft tyres. If you're starting towards the front and you use the soft tyres, if you're good on your tyres, 4 laps on the softs, 2 on the mediums. If you're not so good, maybe go for the 3-3 split. One other thing to also be very careful with in this race, and it's going to be even more critical than when it usually we sort of visit here, is the penalties. Usually we're in the hybrid, so the penalties are not quite so severe when you serve them. In these cars, if you get a half-second penalty, you're going to feel it much more severely on your lap time. Sarthe very much known for being dodgy for track limits, so definitely take that into account. Be ultra careful on the first chicane and going on to the Mulsanne straight to not pick up those half-second penalties, because they will hurt you a lot more than when we usually drive here in the hybrids. Anyway, lap guide time. Let's jump on board our Nissan. Heading towards turn number 1 here. You actually have to kind of lift off the throttle as you're coming through the first curve here and brake nice and early, even before the first of the total boards, just to make sure you get the car into the first apex. Be careful on the curbs there, as we just said, very easy to pick up a penalty. And then down into these curves here, braking into the last of the orange cones. Keep it in third gear through these 2 corners. You go down into second, it's just a bit too torquey, and towards the Tetra Rouge, I believe this corner is called. Very careful here for track limits, as I said. Easy to pick up a penalty both on the outside and the inside of that corner for track limits. Down the Mulsanne straight we come, 231 miles an hour. The 100 metre board are just before the 100 metre board, just to make sure you get the car nice and slowed. Go into second gear here, not first. There's too much torque in first gear as you come out. You'll find it a lot easier in the second gear. You're looking for the green AstroTurf on the left hand side. Just as you get somewhere about there, you want to be kind of coming off the throttle and braking. Very, very easy to go deep at that corner and straight into the barrier if you're not careful with the braking. Yellow barrier on the right hand side into this Arnage, I believe. I could be wrong with that. Indianapolis. You really should know these things, shouldn't I? Towards the Porsche curves we come now. The green AstroTurf on the left hand side is your reference. Sometimes you have to drop it down into third, sometimes it's fourth. I keep it in fourth through all of the Porsche and the Porsche curves here. And very difficult to find a braking point to kind of swing the car into the last tier of the Porsche curves. Don't run wide there, you will pick up a penalty. Very easy to do. And then down towards the 2 chicanes we come. So just before the kind of triangle, I guess, into the boards of the first chicane. Keep it in third gear through there, down into second gear, take loads of curb to cut the corner as much as possible. And that's sort of a lap guide of Le Mans in the Nissan R92 CP. Hopefully the guide as a whole has been useful in some way, shape or form. Quite looking forward to this one myself. I do like to get into the Group C car. This is my first experience of driving in excuse me, in the cockpit view as well, so very much looking forward to it. Anyway, as I said, hopefully the video has been useful. Do hit that like button, do hit that subscribe button if it has been, or hit that dislike button if you just don't like what I'm doing. That's what the dislike button is there for. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you on the next one. Goodbye now.